Nothing contained in this podcast should be considered a substitute for professional medical advice. This content does not represent our respective employers and is purely the opinion of the podcast hosts. We are not your personal medical providers. Sorry, friends. So, if you have concerns or are seeking a diagnosis or treatment, please seek individual advice from a healthcare provider in your area. We are not liable for any risks associated with acting upon the information contained in this podcast. This is intended for educational and entertainment purposes only, so enjoy the ride.
Please drink responsibly and in moderation. Before drinking, please be sure to be of the legal drinking age for your country. We do not encourage the misuse of alcohol.
Welcome to Medical Media Mixer, the perfect cocktail. I'm Nicole Peniston, psychologist.
And I'm Tara Prisco, physician assistant. We're going to mix things up a little. We're going to do my drink first because it involves fire and I have to be in a different location in the house for safety. And then we'll move on. All right.
Experimentation time. Let's do it.
All right. Let's see how this works.
I believe in you. You can do it.
Let's see if it even flames.
Should I tell them what the name of your cocktail is?
Well, the 151 might not be floating on top. It's not flaming like it should.
Uh-oh.
Ooh, it's not flame for a second.
Alcohol made.
Wait, I see it. It's flaming. It's flaming.
It's flaming.
It's flaming.
It's flaming, everyone.
Ooh.
And in case you were wondering, it's the flaming Dr. Pepper.
We'll give details in just a moment, but it was flaming clear, so I couldn't even see the flame. It was so clear.
Okay, I believe you.
It actually tastes pretty good, too. All right, so the flaming Dr. Pepper is 3/4 of an ounce of amaretto, and you have to use an overproof liquor on top of that. So Bacardi 151 apparently is discontinued, but apparently I have a 10-year-old bottle in my cabinet, and it still flames. You're supposed to drop that into half a glass of beer. And I actually chose a cherry wheat beer from Sam Adams because I figured Dr. Pepper is like cherry and then the vanilla amaretto-y stuff. And it would actually taste like Dr. Pepper. And it somewhat does.
Nice.
So we're going to move location back upstairs and I will enjoy my drink more slowly now.
Okay, sounds good. You survived. No fires. Yay.
We had a fire extinguisher on hold.
Sounds good.
Right, I'm going up now. That's fine.
Sorry I said that, but I was like, you were looking at it and bringing it close to your face. I'm like, alcohol can burn clear.
Yeah, no, I didn't realize how clear it was.
And then you're like this. Ooh, it's there.
And then she has no eyebrows.
I think it wasn't there.
Welcome back. We had successful flame. Did not catch my hair or house on fire.
Thank goodness.
And the drink is actually fairly tasty. So it's like a cherry wheat beer with a little amaretto in it. So that's pretty good. There's definitely an ode to Dr. Pepper. Do you like Dr. Pepper?
I do. I'm hearkening back to, there was an episode of And That's Why We Drink where they talk about all of the flavors in Dr. Pepper.
Oh, Deep Happy, as they call it?
Yes.
Or as M calls it?
Yes. And there's a lot of flavors in there. It's a lot of stuff happening that I didn't realize until I listened to that episode.
Yeah, there's definitely supposed to be a lot. So that's why, like at least I guess the vanilla-y and the cherry-y. Is amaretto's what? Almond?
Yes.
Almond, yeah, almond and cherry. I don't know. So what could I be talking about? Because it's such a random freaking
Girl,
drink.
I don't know. Arson? Burns?
Burns that's a good guess, actually. That would be a good one. But no, it's not that. I am talking about a song by one of my favorite bands, and I have a whole lot of stories to tell you about this that you've probably already heard, but you're going to hear it again.
So I'm going to guess if there's stories about your favorite bands and you have a lot of stories, it's probably Incubus.
Correct. So let's take it back to like 1999. That's when this song, Pardon Me, came out and opened my eyes to Incubus. And I became a big fan, knew every song on their album, all the words. And then fast forward to 2001, we were meant to go to a concert of theirs in New York in Hammerstein Ballroom in Manhattan. And it was September 15th, 2001.
I don't think that concert was happening.
It did.
What?
It did.
How did they do that?
September 11th was on a Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
This was a Saturday. And despite our parents telling us, I mean, we were all 21, 22 at
I was going to say,
time.
I was in my master's program.
Yeah,
so.
I was in grad school. Despite our parents telling us we were crazy for going into Manhattan 4 days after 9/11, we did. We took a train.
If it makes you feel any better, I was going to school in Manhattan and had to go to class, or else I was going to get 0 credits. So.
That close to it too.
Mm-hmm.
That's insanity. So it was me, Laura, who we've talked about in the past,
Loop.
Christine,
Mm-hmm.
and Colleen K.
Yeah.
So
my girls. Thanks for the invite, ladies.
I
wasn't like I wasn't in New York at the time.
But you weren't a big fan of the music. That wasn't your vibe.
I'm a big fan of a party. Oh, come on.
So we took a train in. I remember in Penn Station there being like shrines and candles for all people who are missing or, don't know where they are. It was very surreal. I do remember there was still the smell of smoke and things like that. Obviously, it was smoking for a very, very long time. We were in Midtown Manhattan, but, Manhattan's not that big. So it's very close still. So the concert was Incubus, and Hammerstein Ballroom is like an open floor plan, no seats, like standing room only type of venue. So essentially we were in like on a floor, standing there for the whole concert. And there was this opening band, Hoobastank, if you recall them. They had
I do know them quite well also.
They had 2 songs or so. They were not popular at the time. They hit like right after this period of time. And they were the opening band. So we, saw the opening band. And then when Incubus came on, they didn't sing the song I'm going to talk about. Pardon me. The song they sang, I got to think of the title of the song because I like think of the words, but not the title. Let me see the song Incubus.
I have a totally unrelated song stuck in my head. Remember that song Butterfly? Come, my lady, come, my lady. You're my butterfly, sugar, baby. I don't know why that's in my head, but it's in my head.
Okay, so the name of this song, the first song I assume they did this purposefully. The song they opened with is a song called The Warmth.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something about like something breeze comes across the highest high rise today. So thinking about that being 4 days after 9/11, and talking about the warmth and like people coming together and but like a cool breeze along a high rise. It was just like life-changing. I don't know. It sounds crazy, but there's certain points in life.
Yeah.
So their concert was amazing. Our good friend Laura, known as Lupita, various names. She was crowd surfing.
Of course she was. Of course she was.
It was a lot of fun. It was just an excellent, amazing concert. And I think everybody in the place just had a certain vibe because of what had just happened. And it was just sort of surreal. So after the concert, we're outside. And of course, Laura, she's getting a whole lot of talk in this episode. I already told her. She never wants the party to end, right?
Never.
So she's sitting there, out there talking to everybody, chit-chatting, making friends with everybody out there outside after the concert. And then we see the guys from Hoobastank out there handing out like their single. Like back then you would hand out CDs of just your single to get people to know you. And she talked them into it, letting us go backstage with them after the concert.
That is very on brand for her.
Some magic words. I don't know what she did, but us girls all got to go backstage.
For context, she is also a wildly attractive, wildly engaging young woman. So of course she's going to get her way.
But she just has like, I don't know. She just doesn't care. She'll just talk to anyone. Yep. She'll get you in.
She's very charismatic.
Yeah. So we all went backstage and we got to hang out with Hoobastank and we got to hang out with Incubus. And I met Brandon Boyd, the lead singer. I met all the band members. We got to know the other band members of Hoobastank. And then after their little sort of backstage, it was just like a room. They were like, oh, we're going to this Irish pub. What is it called? The Irish Pub? I don't know. That's literally what it was called.
Ye old Irish pub.
And so we all come out and we're hopping in cabs And we were all squeezing to this cab, and this cab driver was getting mad. He's like, there's too many people. You got to get out. You can't. And unfortunately, in the shuffle, our friend Colleen did not get in the cab. So I don't know if you know this part of the story. And we're like, just get the next one. Go to the Irish pub. And she didn't. She ended up taking the train home. And I feel really sad and bad when I look back at this, because we didn't have like cell phones the way we have today. Like we had like text messaging by like hitting the same button like 50 times. So it's not like we could like contact each other as quickly. And, you know, we're just saying like catch the next one. But we all squeezed into a cab. I think there was more than one cab, but whatever it was, the last one that we squeezed into. I know Laura was sitting on the drummer from Incubus's lap.
Of course she was.
Because, you know, as one does when we're traveling with a band to a bar. And then we went and we hung out at the Irish pub and we chit-chatted with all the band members. And we ended up making friends with the lead singer, Brandon Boyd's brother, Darren. I do remember him. He was traveling with the band. And the thing about taking a train into New York is there's a point in time where the trains stop running and they don't run again till the morning commute. Mm-hmm. So we missed that time. I don't remember, it is 3 a.m., whatever time it is that they stop running. And so we had to wait until like 6 or whatever it was to take the train back to New Jersey. So we ended up going back to Darren, Brandon Boyd's brother's hotel room and hanging out. And I swear this is not a euphemism. It is the absolute honest truth. We had tea and cookies out of his minibar. And everyone's like, 2 girls going back to the brother rock star's room. I swear it was 3 girls. I guess we just hung out with him. But
knowing you guys, that is what happens. Yeah.
He was very nice. He was very cool. We hung out with him. We had tea and cookies. And we took a train home. Our friend Christine did end up becoming friendly with one of the roadies from Hoobastank. So we did end up going a couple more times to see Hoobastank, and we got to meet Sum 41 and Handsome Devil. So we got to see a couple different people. And I did finally go crowd surfing, I think, at the Sum 41 concert after I like got a little like taste of it at the other concert. Mm-hmm. I did do it myself at that one. And we got to meet the, you know, people from those bands. So it was a wild time. I always tell my children, Mom was cool once way back in the day.
If they want to know the story about pancakes, I'm happy to share it with them.
Don't tell them all my secrets.
It's for another day and another time.
So when I literally, this topic idea just popped in my head one day. I don't know, the song just popped into my head, and I'll go through with you a little bit about the song. The song that I'm covering is Pardon Me. So it came out in 1999. And I'll give you some of the lyrics because you have to get the vibe. All right. So it's Pardon me while I burst. Pardon me while I burst. A decade ago, I never thought I would be at 23 on the verge of spontaneous combustion. Woe is me. But I guess that comes with the territory, an ominous landscape of never-ending calamity. I need you to hear, I need you to see that I have all I can take, and exploding seems like a definite possibility to me. So I'll give you sort of just the hook, and I'm not going to give you the rest. But so pardon me while I burst into flames. I've had enough of the world and its people's mindless games. So pardon me while I burn and rise above the flames. Pardon me, I'll never be the same. So, well, I have to give you more lyrics now because, you know, there's so many good lyrics in this song. All right, I'm going to give you the next verse because it's just so good. Not 2 days ago, I was having a look in a book and I saw a picture of a guy fried up above his knee. And I said, I can relate because lately I've been thinking of combustication as a welcome vacation from the burdens of the planet Earth, like gravity, hypocrisy, and the perils of being in 3D, but thinking so much differently. That's kind of the main good lyrics, but it really is. It was a very different song of the time. Like, I'm sure it stood out to you. Like, you've definitely can hear this song in your head, right?
Yeah.
So I'm talking about spontaneous combustion today.
Spontaneous human combustion.
Yes, human combustion. Thoughts? Questions?
What comes to mind about spontaneous human combustion is that one Unsolved Mysteries episode from like forever ago about the old lady who like they just found her like basically burned, but like then her knees down was like perfectly fine.
That's kind of like the song, burned up above his knee. So basically, yeah. So we're talking, obviously the song is not talking about literal fire, but like emotional overload and all those kind of things.
I was thinking it was more about sexual combustion.
No, yeah, it's more supposed to be about like being 23 is so hard. I wish I was 23 again. But, life is too much. The perils of living in 3D, just like existing in the world. So this song came out on the Make Yourself album, which was like a huge major radio breakthrough for them. But he was inspired by literally seeing pictures of spontaneous human combustion. So like I said, it's quite fitting. It just a randomness. I feel like we've had a lot of heavy sciencey episodes. So me, having flaming shots and talking about, rock stars seems a little bit lighter.
A little bit.
So the classic characteristics historically described for spontaneous human combustion: the torso is usually reduced to ash. The arms, legs, or heads are relatively preserved. And there's usually minimal damage to the surrounding furniture or room. And typically there's a greasy or oily residue found nearby. And it usually terrified people because there's a fire without a visible cause. It's indoors. Usually the person is alone. And the body was destroyed in ways that like a fireplace, a candle, there's nothing there that like really quite makes sense. So right now, we'll tell you, modern medicine does not recognize spontaneous human combustion, or SHC as they call it, as truly spontaneous. But these are real cases and real things that happen. It took time for them to figure out why this phenomenon happens. So in the early 18th and 19th centuries, there really wasn't, a lot of forensic science, we'll say. But this era loved like the theory of spontaneous human combustion. They, basically kind of morally framed it with like disease and death, and framed it usually typically associated with alcohol use. It's actually talked about in Charles Dickens' Bleak House and Redburn by Herman Melville. So we're talking some good old authors.
Wasn't Bleak House like made into like a horror series like within the last couple of years? I feel like I remember seeing something advertised about it.
I will have to look into that. But yeah, it's essentially their main character, a notorious alcoholic, was found reduced to ash. That's kind of the most famous fictional version. And then in Herman Melville's Redburn, a sailor dies from animal combustion, they call it, while intoxicated. And it's just more like a maritime folklore. And then there's another one called Wyland by Charles Brockden Brown. A patriarch dies during intense religious fervor. And basically at the time, their theory was that the alcohol spirits made the body flammable. And they did sort of try and come up with like case reports, the old-timey doctors of the time, to kind of treat it as a legitimate medical thing. But it did almost always seem to, because it occurred often in people who were using alcohol, sort of a moral judgment, a punishment sort of a thing.
Yeah. I just found it. Bleak House was a 2005 BBC TV series, but I think it got popular again during COVID when people were like watching old stuff. Gillian Anderson and Carey Mulligan were in it.
Oh,
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so some other like other Brit actors that like if you saw, you'd be like, oh yeah, I've seen that person. But
okay,
I was like, I know I didn't make this up. It was a real thing.
In more modern culture, not quite super, but this is Spinal Tap. 2 drummers die on stage of spontaneous human combustion. In the X-Files, they talk about that in sort of one of their episodes.
Speaking of Gillian.
Exactly. I was like, that's a nice tie-in right there. That wasn't even intentional. And then superhero Johnny Storm, the Human Torch.
Obviously, I know him.
So, those are some more modern things. But what is the actual science behind this? It's something called the Wick effect. So they're also called fat wick burns. So the real truth is, yeah, humans don't just spontaneously combust. Typically, it is started by some sort of external flame. Often, if the person becomes incapacitated from alcohol or drug use, or dies from just natural causes, and then a small thing like a cigarette, a match, a candle, or a spark is what starts it. So if you kind of can picture someone sitting in a chair, falling asleep after drinking with their cigarette in their hand, that would be a very typical way this would occur. And first their clothing ignites, and then the heat melts their subcutaneous body fat. So if you kind of think of their body fat like a candle. So it would
So
work
is
as a
this
candle.
happening with people who are like very overweight and so have excess body fat, or is it anyone? Any
It's
size?
not, yeah, they're not quite specifically saying that. They're saying it's just, I mean, it would have to be at least something in that front area. You know, it could be breast tissue. It could be just having a belly, you know, in that spot. But yes, they're a very tiny, thin person who has very little subcutaneous body fat isn't going to be a Wick effect type thing. But they don't specify like weight or body habitus specifically. But basically the way it works is the clothing is like the wick and the fat is like the candle wax. And so it's a slow, very localized burn that lasts hours. So often this is somebody who's nobody else's home or they live alone and they're found later. And
so the idea is that they've already passed. Because I'm like, if you were burning, wouldn't you wake up?
Yeah. Or they've either already passed or they were so incapacitated that they passed out that deeply that it didn't wake them. But it's very slow burn. It can last for like 12 plus hours. And the flame isn't like huge flames. It tends to be, we'll say like 6 to 12 inches. And often that's why the surrounding area doesn't get touched. It really only burns very locally like a candle would. And it says the torso specifically is why it doesn't go to the extremities because there's a higher fat content in the torso and then the layers of clothing. And usually that's where you're going to be closest to a flame source is your upper body. So real forensic cases, like we said, have those kind of those very specific features. Torso destructed, oily residue, minimal spread. There's a case in 2006, the Geneva case, where a victim was burned between his knees and chest. Likely ignition was a cigar or cigarette, and he did have alcohol and sedatives in their system. Animal and human studies confirmed sustained combustion 6 to 7 hours here, it says. And I'm sorry, they're trying to change the name. I'm sorry, I'm trying to read my own notes.
What do they want to change it to? From
spontaneous human combustion to fat wick burns. I don't know if either is better, but because technically it's not, you're not spontaneously combusting. Yes, I get that. So they're trying to call it fat wick burns as an official title, but I think colloquially it's always going to be spontaneous human combustion, right?
I mean, I feel like I don't know if I heard this or I made it up in my head, but I think I always assumed it had something to do with like gases or something else in the body causing the combustibleness.
Right. But I think something like a gas, so typically gases would burn more like out, you know what I mean? Whereas this literally is like a candle. So that's why
I guess I was thinking maybe like stomach gases, and that's why it was like localized there.
In that area. Yeah. But I mean, they've really done the research to figure out that this is typically what happens. But they have to exclude things like that. They exclude house fires, natural death before burning, or homicide that was staged as an accident. Key like things that they look for is soot in the airways, their carboxyhemoglobin levels. That's for the smoke inhalation. The burn patterns on the skin, and of course, like reconstructing the scene and all that. But sometimes, you know, low intensity fires, they don't behave like house fires. And that post-mortem burning is very different than what, say, you know, fire investigator is looking at this. And it's not something that they typically would see in their day-to-day. You know, they're typically investigating a house fire that everything's burned and, you know, God forbid there's a person in there. But it would be very unusual for them to find this. So I'm sure they're not very well versed in it. You know, it's not something that pops to mind right away. But there's been enough cases over time that they really have figured out that this is how and why it happens. So yeah, I mean, this is a pretty different sort of concept. It's not our typical, you know, medical thing, but it does affect a body. I mean, you know, it does affect the human body.
Well, it's making me think of other things that we probably should not have been exposed to as young children. Like I said, the Unsolved Mysteries episode about it. But I'm thinking about, and I feel like I just saw like something on TikTok about this. Do you remember watching The Burning Bed?
Yes.
And we were like 10.
Kids.
Yes.
Like why?
But
I think
what
I
came
feel
to
like
mind?
in school we watched it. Did we
I
watch
feel
it in
like
high school?
I feel like we did watch it in school. Yeah,
Yeah.
which should not. It is not. For those of you who don't know about the burning bed, it is a woman who is a domestic violence victim, and she sets her husband on fire, and he burns to death in the bed, and they show it in the movie, and we watched the movie in school as children. But what I was thinking about that was, if I'm remembering correctly, didn't he not wake up because he was like so drunk? So I'm wondering too, like, just if your body itself is on fire and is burning, you may not necessarily wake up. And then like that could probably lead to maybe some of that Wick effect where it's just localizing because you're not like moving around and thrashing and
there's no air
spreading
to
the
it.
flame.
There's no oxygen. You're just sleeping. That's exactly what it is. That's why typically some sort of substance is involved with it. So it is one of those things of, I mean, if you think about it, I mean, of course, falling asleep with a cigarette, you know, having a candle next to you when you're dozing, those are things we need to think about, you know, as far as safety and fire and things like that.
How our entire generation is traumatized by all the things that we just watched on TV.
We just watched. It was just on. These things were just on. Like
just on TV. We watched the Challenger explode. We watched lots of stuff.
This was just the 40th anniversary of that. Do you know?
I know. That's why I brought it up. It was
Where
on my
were you
mind.
when the Challenger? We just talked about 9/11. Now we can talk about the Challenger. We talk about all of the traumas of our life.
I was at Featherbed Lane School. Mm-hmm. And we were all in the cafeteria and they wheeled in the TV on the thing and we all sat and watched it. And then some of us cheered because we didn't know what was happening. And then the teachers turned it off and we all went back to our classrooms and they told us about 15 minutes later that there was an accident. And we still didn't really get it until like we all went home and then our parents explained them the next day.
Right. We were like first grade. We were in first grade.
Well, and the funny thing is that there's this whole theory that it's all the Mandela effect because they didn't film the explosion.
Yes, they did.
But that was the thing. We didn't see the explosion, but we saw the debris and we saw stuff fall. So no, we didn't see it explode, but we saw things fall from the sky. There is video footage of that.
There is video footage of it. And there's a whole documentary I watched on it. Mm-hmm. I actually was homesick from school and my mom was back in the back bedroom folding laundry and I was sitting by myself on the couch watching it. I'm like, hey, Ma, something happened.
Well, and for context, for any younger listeners we have who don't understand, it was a big thing for schools because there was a teacher for the very first time on that flight. And so it was like schools everywhere were supposed to watch this and watch a teacher go to space and it was going to be amazing. So it was like, this was the worst time ever to have a tragedy on TV because children everywhere were watching it.
Everywhere. Right. Yeah. It's normally in the middle of the school day. Nobody's watching it, you know. Lunches happen every day. Like things like this don't happen every day. This was such a touch point in our like history. If we want to go down, we can go down Baby Jessica in the well.
I remember that. I remember that my parents' friends were coming over for some reason. And I was like, I got to see if they get her out the well. And then the other kids were upstairs in my room playing games. And I was downstairs in the living room watching them lift her tiny giant head. Because remember, like her head was all swollen. Lift her out of the well. And like, they got her. And literally no one else in my household cared.
See, I felt like the whole nation was just held captive, like following the story.
In my house, I was the only one transfixed. Everybody else was like, they'll get her. But also,
so many weird things.
Strangely enough, when I looked up to see what episode of Unsolved Mysteries it was, it happens to be on the same episode where they investigate Tupac Shakur's murder. And I just watched the Diddy documentary and it blew my freaking mind about Biggie and Tupac and Diddy.
Oh, yeah. There's a whole...
I feel like that could be a whole episode, but it has nothing to do with psychology. It just has to do with me and my conspiracy theories. And John Bonet's involved somehow.
Oh, my God.
John Bonet's involved with Epstein. That's different.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
I didn't want to think about that.
Yeah, apparently they found a photo of both John Bonet and Madeleine McCain.
No, really?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
No, I'm thinking maybe he just had pictures of little kids and they said it was those girls. Either way, it's terrible.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, he's terrible.
Maybe
I also
we could
think
do an after chat with all random conspiracy things.
Well, I've got lots of conspiracies. There's a whole bunch of people who we think are dead are in Cuba. Yes. But that is not where Amelia Earhart is. She is gone.
Well, she would be like really old by now. So either way, she's gone.
Oh no, her, Tupac, and Biggie could be smoking up in Cuba, feeling
Elvis
fine.
still alive?
No, Elvis is definitely gone. Rest in peace, my friends. Yeah. Elvis is gone. Him and his peanut butter banana sandwich.
Oh, stop.
He's gone.
There are too many things. There are way too many crazy things that have occurred in our lifetime.
I know. And then all the young people are like, oh, well, we've lived through a pandemic. Girl, don't get me started.
Yeah, I feel like we like shelter them, like these younger generations, from a lot of it. And then we talk about it, and then we have like,
and then they think we're crazy, and that
like,
we make this stuff up.
We talk about like their trauma, and we talk about counseling and therapy, which is awesome, amazing, obviously. But like, they didn't have that shit back then.
No, we watch trauma on TV for funsies.
Like, that's the thing too, because the news was just on. Like, the TV was on.
And I feel like the news was more graphic back then. Like, you would see literal crime scenes on the news.
Yeah, but now, like, we watch things on Netflix and Amazon Prime and Hulu and Disney Plus on demand. I'm not just putting TV on and we don't have even regular TV.
Right. Well, I think that's where it comes in. Maybe, I don't know if this is what you were getting at, but what I thought is like, that was, I think, why we were exposed to so much, because it wasn't regulated. It was just on and then it was gone. Like, you didn't know it was coming. You didn't know to prep.
It was, the 7 o'clock news or the 8 o'clock, whatever time it was. And it was just on, like things were on, or the commercial would come up next, murder, mayhem in such and such town. Even on the radio, I do hear that some of that stuff on the radio. And my oldest was in the car with me, and like, she like doesn't get affected so much by things like that. But there was something like, like pretty bad, like, up next, we'll talk about how a 16-year-old was murdered by another student in New Brunswick or wherever it was. Mm-hmm. And I was like,
yeah, that happened.
I forget, like, all these things are just on the news because my kids aren't exposed to it. So, yeah. And I don't know that our parents had conversations with us about it either.
I mean, there's a reason that we are the generation that we are, and that we have these stereotypical attitudes that we do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
We just had to, like, deal with it.
Defend for ourselves.
We watched
every
scary
single
movies.
Every single one of us either knew someone who was almost kidnapped or saw something suspicious happen out on the streets because we weren't allowed home until it was dark. You we all saw some shit.
Yeah.
And we all survived. I mean, the most traumatic thing I ever saw was we were playing at my friend's backyard, and she wanted to like swing around like the pole of the swings, and she fell, and we heard the bone break, like heard it, saw it.
No.
And it was 3 of us. She's on the ground screaming. We see the bone, blood, everything. Me and my friend look at each other, and we just go, and then we each ran home and didn't tell anyone.
And didn't tell the parents, see? Somehow you think you're going to get in trouble.
I mean, I'm sure my mom found out eventually, but like not the same day.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
We had one little girl from down the street come down and play on our play set, and she went like under the glider. Like there's a glider and we're on it, and then she just ran under it for some reason. Well, you just told a gross thing.
Yeah.
She split her tongue.
Yeah, it'll happen.
Lots of blood.
Hey. She'll be popular in the future at some point.
Not right now. And she was a pretty little kid too, we knew the people, but we didn't like know the people. She just came in our backyard. My mom's like bringing this like child, running her down the street to the family, like, here's your bloody child that split their tongue open in our backyard. That's craziness.
Yeah, things happens. Yeah. But we survived, and
our kids are in bubbles now.
That's why our generation doesn't give a fuck.
Seriously.
But we know better, and we do better.
We do. All right, we gotta do some after chats, my friend.
We do.
So
we have plenty to talk about.
My friends out there, hit us up on Patreon.
Yes.
You can start for as low as $3 a month. I mean, literally, it's less than a cup of coffee nowadays. Like $5 plus for regular coffee.
And you'll get so much content that we haven't done yet. But you'll love it.
But once we have people, we'll do more. Right now, it's just our moms, so they forgive us.
It is Deborah and Lane. We've never met them. They are wonderful supporters of the program. They are. They truly are. Yeah. I was at dinner the other day, and my mom's like, "I was listening to the other episode." I was like, "What? You listen?" She's like, "Yeah, I listened about lobotomies." I was like, "Cool.
All right.
Someone's listening. Someone's out there. It's not just you and me."
All right, people. So thank you for listening to Medical Media Mixer.
The perfect cocktail. Cheers. My drink is empty.
Mine tastes like Dr. Pepper.
I just have dehydrated orange. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Medical Media Mixer podcast. If you enjoyed the conversation, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review us on your favorite podcast platform. Your support helps others find the show. Want to keep the conversation going? Follow us on social media. We're at Medical Media Mixer Podcast on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, and on Pinterest, the Medical Media Mixer board.
If you'd like to support the show and help us grow, check us out on Patreon. Patreon.com/Medical Media Mixer Podcast. And on Buy Me a Coffee, buymeacoffee.com/Medical Media Mixer Podcast. If you have a topic idea, feedback, or just want to say hi, send us an email at medicalmediamixer@gmail.com. You can also stream all of our episodes and find more info on our website, medicalmediamixer.podbean.com. We're available on all major podcast platforms, so no matter where you listen, we're there. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, keep mixing medicine and media.